My neighbor keyed cars over a parking spot, so I nailed him to his driveway. My neighbor Harold guards the public parking space in front of his house like it's the last chopper out of Saigon, and I don't mean that in a protective way. I mean it in the war crimes way. He'd stand in the spot when he saw someone approaching, waving them off like an airport ground crew, put traffic cones out every morning that he'd move only for his own car, once yelled at a DoorDash driver for trespassing, until the kid just canceled the delivery and left. It started with the fake tickets, professional-looking orange envelopes tucked under windshields that said, "Notice of violation, pay $80 now." It was completely fake, but my elderly neighbor Mrs. Park paid Harold directly in cash because she was terrified of getting a real ticket. He kept the money. The tickets were just his warm-up act. When those stopped working, Harold escalated to keying cars, deep, deliberate scratches that always spelled out the same message: my spot. Jake from 2 houses down, $1,200 paint job on his Honda. The visiting nurse who parked there while checking on Mrs. Park, Harold keyed her entire driver's side. When a young mom parked there during her daughter's birthday party, Harold didn't just key her minivan, he literally carved "Move bitch" into the hood, right in front of all the children. When the dad came out to confront him, Harold stood in his driveway with a baseball bat. "This is my property line and that's my spot. You want to test me?" His own garage was filled with plastic bins and an unused treadmill. He was wasting perfectly good parking space while ruining people's lives over a public spot owned by the city. Last month was the last straw. Harold keyed my car because I'd parked there for exactly 17 minutes while unloading groceries in the rain. The scratch stretched from headlight to taillight, a $2,400 estimate from the body shop. When I knocked on his door with my insurance claim in hand, he just smiled. Prove it was me. Then he leaned in close, breath stinking of Milwaukee's best. "That's my spot. Been mine since before you were born. Park there again, and a scratch will be the least of your problems." That's when I realized Harold wasn't just a bad neighbor or a parking enthusiast. He was a domestic terrorist holding our entire street hostage over a piece of asphalt that legally belonged to everyone. And it was time Harold learned what happens when you declare war on your neighbors. I spent the next week studying Harold's routine like a nature documentary. Every morning at 6 a.m., he'd move his car from the garage driveway to his spot out front. He'd race home at lunch to check the spot, and again at 5 p.m. The man structured his entire life around 30 feet of public asphalt. But here's what I noticed. Harold was cheap. He still had a flip phone to avoid data charges. Ran his AC exactly twice last summer. And most importantly, he'd been driving the same 1994 Ford Ranger for 20 years because they don't make them like they used to. That truck was his pride, his identity, his throne. Every Saturday, he'd wash it in the driveway, spending 3 hours on a vehicle worth maybe $2,000. He'd rather die than pay for repairs. Thursday night, I set my alarm for 3 a.m. The street was empty, Harold's house dark. I worked quietly and methodically. First, I spread a thin layer of construction adhesive on the asphalt of his spot, the kind that takes 72 hours to fully cure and bonds to rubber on contact. Then I scattered a bag of roofing nails across the adhesive, pressing them down just enough to stick. Once the sun rose, I watched Harold emerge at 6 a.m. sharp, keys jingling, ready for his morning ritual. He started backing out of his driveway toward his spot, then slammed the brakes. He got out, staring at the nail field. His face went through confusion, rage, then panic. He tried sweeping them, but they were glued solid. He tried prying them up with a screwdriver, but the adhesive held. By 7 a.m., Harold was on his knees with pliers, yanking at individual nails while neighbors left for work. He managed to clear about 10 nails before realizing the futility. Hundreds still remained. Harold couldn't park there without destroying his precious truck's tires, and he couldn't remove the nails without spending days on his knees. The construction adhesive would bond stronger each hour. By noon, word had spread. Every neighbor Harold had terrorized slowly drove by, some honking cheerfully. Mrs. Park actually parked there while Harold watched helplessly from his porch, his truck still in the driveway. He tried putting his cones out, but people just moved them. What could he do? Call the cops about nails that looked accidentally spilled? Admit he'd been illegally claiming public property? For 3 days, Harold sat on his porch, guarding a spot he couldn't use. When he finally tried to park there anyway, assuming the adhesive had weakened, all 4 tires went flat within seconds. The tow truck driver laughed when Harold explained why he'd parked on a bed of nails. By day 5, Harold gave up. The city eventually cleaned the spot, but the damage was done. The neighbors had tasted freedom. Harold still lives there, but he parks in his driveway now. His spot became the neighborhood's favorite parking space, and everyone takes turns using it, except Harold.